2020, right, in March, 18th of March. That was when the announcement of lockdown. So I remember at that time, I was still not, I think we were all not knowing that it was going to be permanent. We thought, okay, never mind, it was temporary, 2 weeks, right? So what was my focus? What was it that I really needed to do first? So because we were what we call the voice of the industry, for the hospitality industry. So we started engaging with all the F&B entrepreneurs, hoteliers, asking them what is it that we need to do. We need to issue press release, we need to start informing everybody. So being the voice and speaking for them, coming up with press releases, going for interviews with press, speaking on behalf of the F&B guys. So that was my main focus. So didn't think about my business then, was like, okay, what do we need to do for the industry? And I remember doing that all the way till end of March. Then when it came to end of March, it was extended. There was, the 2 weeks got extended. So then I continued to do what I had to do for the industry. But came to April, I started having a wake-up call. That was when I said, Jen, what's happening to my business, right? Because my whole business, there was no digital. Everything was brick and mortar. So whether it was the event side, the award side, the media side, nothing was on digital. So completely locked down, completely shut down. There was no way that I could function. So then it went on to thinking, okay, so what else can we do? Had a meeting with the staff. Came to end of April, then I realized that it's not going anywhere. Then the fear started coming and said, what am I going to do? What's the plan? How do we proceed? And I think from sometime from May onwards, I started feeling a lot of uncertainty and fear coming in. Although, I've been in the training myself, like, what's happening? And as we went on, I then realized that, look, I cannot keep the business going because there's no way that I can function. The business had no way to do anything, complete shutdown. After at that time was maybe 28 years, 28 years, 27, 28 years in business, I could not believe that, the whole cycle came back again, because I was telling you, right, back in when my first husband passed away, the whole business was also completely, in a loss, and I thought I was going to shut it down. And then after so many years, the whole thing came again and said, oh my God, why me again? The whole why me syndrome came back. It was like as if I was just asking God, what? Not enough challenges, is it? Not enough crisis, is it? It has to come back again, business, personal, business. So I think sometime in June, July, I had to shut down the business. I had to really release everybody and said, okay, I really don't know where we were going. I really had no idea whether we could even sustain the business. So then it had to come to a point where the income is coming from. At the end of the day, I'm a business owner, but I'm also a single mother. I also have family to support. I have my children. I have my mom and everything else. And then the reality sunk in. That is when I completely came to a point where I really had to look from inside. I really had to look at it from my point of view, look at me as a person, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a woman, as a person. What am I going to do? So then I went on to say, okay, so what is it that I can do, or what is it that I've never done before that people are doing today? Digital. So how do I get into the digital platform? How do I get myself out there? Everyone was doing FB Live. Everyone was getting into this Zoom and FB Live and everything else except me, because there was no way that I could, get my foot into digital. I was never there. I was never in the digital front because I never did a transformation. I never thought that I needed digital at all, right? So it went on and on for, until about towards September, if I'm not wrong. And that is the time when I said, okay, it's either I do something about it, or I think this will be the end of the business. That is when I started stepping into the point of getting myself into digital. So started doing live, Facebook Live, created my own Hapa TV, channel, so to speak, online channel, created Gen TV, started interviewing people, started getting myself out there, keeping the brand alive. And I tell you, Vincent, I just did everything. Anything and everything I could sell. Whether it was, I remember there was some people who came and said, Jen, we have products that you can sell. You can do sanitizing, you can do anything of that for hospitality. It was just a moment of no thinking, no worry about whether, this is only for the low end or whatever it is. It was just take on any opportunity that came. Anytime, anywhere, anyhow I can find money, that was what we did. That was what I did. Right? So it came to a point where it was more like sailing the boat myself again. How to keep myself how to sustain my business, how to sustain myself through until the point that I can actually come back up again. Coming back to like the oxygen tank that I was talking about, right? So that much of oxygen, what am I going to do, right? There's no such thing as ego or, face value, cannot, be seen doing this, cannot be seen doing that. Totally stripped off, and got myself out to do food tastings, go to different places to do all the different tastings, doesn't matter whether it's a high end or low end. Basically just kept myself going. One thing is to keep my brand going. 2 is to keep my presence going. 3 was really, Vincent, to keep my sanity, really to tell myself that, you've come this far. Whatever it is, you have to pick up the courage to do it. Whether you've done it before or whatever it is, it's the courage. I really needed that. I had to be brave, I have to be strong, and I just have to, we call it in Chinese, right, 面皮厚, really thick skin, and go out and do whatever that I've never done before. And shut off, I really learned how to shut off the voices that will tell me or criticize or say this is not good, this is not the kind of thing you should do, this is not going to work. All those voices, I just basically completely shut it off, right? And was there fear? Of course. I was living in fear. Obviously, I was living in fear because there was so much of uncertainty. I didn't know whether I could continue to sustain the business and also, of course, my family, right? The kids, there were 3 of them, and with my mom, and I just have to just keep going, just keep going. And I think in my whole life, I've never prayed so much. I really just kept praying. I just kept talking to God. I just said, I don't know why this is happening. I mean, COVID was something that had really taken down a lot of people. It's just not me. I cannot be going out there and say, why is it only me? But, everyone was going through a hard time. But we were all going through different kinds of hard time, different phases of hard time. But the entire COVID period, I think even after 2020 then came to 2021, people haven't picked up yet. The COVID thing was still going on. The phase of COVID was still going on. And then sometime in September, which is about 1.5 years later, I was hit with a major crisis, family crisis. It was, I think, one of the worst ever crisis I've had to endure in life. It's what I call a moment that I would never want any other woman to go through. It was losing family members. It was the whole family was in crisis. We were torn apart. We didn't know what happened. Things just suddenly happened, and everyone was literally very traumatized, and I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it then. But now when I think of it, it was one of the darkest moments of my life. Yeah, I can't even compare with the time where my late husband passed away suddenly, or my first business that almost went bankrupt. It is in no comparison, absolutely no comparison. And that time, I was really in total darkness from September 2021 right to about December. Right, those few months were the months that I think it was kind of like a walking zombie, just walking around but not knowing what's happening. But at the same time that I really had to remain strong for the family, because like I said, the family was torn apart, but yet I had to keep it together and continue to be strong for everybody. But it was one of the most toughest time of my life. And when that family crisis hit, it was, oh God, it was back again to why me syndrome. The why me syndrome came back again. Like, why me? Like, why me again? How many years do I have to go through that, right? It's been almost 30 years of my life that is just non-stop from one to another crisis to another crisis. And then I started looking at what is the pattern, what is it that I have to learn? What is it that I need to let go? What is it that I need to be able to tell myself to say, okay, if I want this, this kind of crisis to stop, what is it that I have to really embrace into my life? And as much as that time was the most toughest time, like I said, and it's the darkest time, but it's also a time that I needed the most courage. It was really having the courage to go back out there and face the world, face my life, live my life like I'm not broken, but get myself back on, get my feet back on. And especially when I'm in the business of training and coaching, I'm in the business of empowerment. So I need to make sure that I am fully empowered before I can go out, and start empowering lives or impacting lives, and looking at my children as well, making sure that they see me as somebody that, I can fall 10 times, but I get up 11 times, that sort of thing. So it was a period of a lot of tests, testing of my internal strength, testing of my courage, of my resilience, testing of my faith. Like, how much faith do I have for myself, and how much faith do I have in God? How much faith do I have in my whole entire family or into anybody? It was no room for doubt, Vincent. Really, at that point, there was not even a single slight place for me to have doubt, because the minute I allowed the doubt to set in, I'm completely back again, back to the downfall again. It's kind of like a moment where you build yourself up and you're really pushing yourself up, and there's no time, no room, no space for you to even have a bit of gap for the doubt, for the sense of self-doubt to come in, because when that comes in, completely goes down again. So it was a point of really building on that courage and faith, building on my own self-belief, building on purpose, it kind of, all my core values came into it. And that time, I would say December 2021 until January 22, February 22, those few months was a time where I needed all my core values to come in and really help myself to shape myself again, to shape my life again, to shape my faith again, to continue living. And that was the last 10% of the oxygen tank. That was like, you either get this through or you don't. So it was a very hard decision. It was a decision that I have to make. It's like, that's all the oxygen you have in the tank, and you have to get yourself to the other side. So there's no room for, like I said, self-doubt to come in, or there's no room for uncertainty to come in. It was like, make a decision now, get yourself there, and swim over. And that was what I did. And I think because of that concept that I had, that saved my life. So there was no room for me to procrastinate, or no room for me to say, okay, let's see how it is. I'm not sure, I have that ding dong feeling. It was a moment that I just told myself, the metaphor was, you have 10% left in the oxygen tank, what are you going to do? Right? And everyone around me is dependent on me. So it's either I get myself back on my feet and really finish off that journey, swim off and get myself back again, or I remain in where I am, and that would mean that everyone around me would be affected as well. So it was a very painful time. It was very, I think there was a lot of mixture of emotion, hurt and sadness and anger and disappointment, betrayal. I don't know, everything was a whole mix of it. And came to a point where I told myself, this is going to be the final crisis of my life. And I made that decision and said, enough. I'm not going to get myself back into this kind of, we call it pattern. I'm going to just let go of all these things that have been holding me back, or all these things that have given me this pattern, ongoing pattern. I'm just going to cut it off. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to let them go. And I said, I'm not going to go through this crisis again, right? So pick myself up and start moving. And within the next, I would say 6 months, things got better. And then it went on a year, and then things started really picking up again and coming back again, right? And fast forward, I think sometime last year, after June, maybe also around August, September. So that's probably about 2 years after the crisis. Whatever that I lost made its way back again. So it kind of come back, after 2 years. So then I really understood what it was that, whatever that we lose in life, or whatever that we face in life, or whatever that we get disconnected in life unexpectedly, if we can look at it as, okay, it's only a cycle, whatever goes around, it's like the earth is round, whatever that goes around comes around, like how people say karma goes around, comes around. So there's good things goes around, comes around. And we can keep that mindset of ours that think about whatever it is that we can lose today, it will come back again. But it's very important that we remain strong and courageous, right? Remain resilient, remain faithful, remain positive with a positive intention, and continue to finish that swim, continue to finish that journey to the last breath, to the last part of the tank, and then embrace it. And one day you will realize that whatever that went off will come back with a different purpose, of course, right? So has it been a real, I think since COVID, a lot of things have changed. My life has changed, my family's environment have changed, the business has changed, friends have changed. I think everything has changed. And has it changed for the better? I wouldn't say whether things actually changed for better or worse, but it's evolved. There's evolution, there's growth, and there's a lot of learnings. There's a lot of learnings. So overall, I think the COVID journey has been one of the toughest journey in my life, not just in terms of business, but also in personal. As a woman, as a mother, that was, I think, that was tougher even compared to the business, because business, when you fail or you collapse, you can rebuild. You can always build another business. You can always create something else, do something else. But when it comes to family, when it comes to people, when it comes to your loved ones, you can't rebuild. You can't rebuild a person, you can't recreate a person, They are the people, they are part of you. So I think personally during COVID, it has been a tremendously hard journey for me. Would I want to live it again? No, I wouldn't want to live it again. But have I learned? I've learned a lot. And that is why now, when I get into coaching, when I coach women, whatever parts of their journey, I understand it, and whether they are going through divorce, or they lost a loved one, or they lost business, or in health, or anywhere else, right? I'm able to resonate and relate, because my journey has been, well, now I call it so colorful. And I call it, it has been so colorful. And, whatever happens, courage is one thing that I always tell them. You have to build your courage. You have to, because with courage, you then feel like you are, it kind of like, it powers you up. Now you have the courage to even take one step. Because a lot of people who are stuck in any circumstances, the most difficult thing is to take that first step, because they're scared. Right? There's so much of fear, there's so much of things, uncertainty, there's so much of doubt, so much of all these things coming, people's voices telling you everything. And obviously when there's fear, you will not have enough courage. So that's always the first thing that I always tell them, you build your courage. You really have to build your courage, even if you have to pull yourself out and put your foot one ahead of another. And you do that. Because when you start having courage to continue your life, to do what you have to do, may not necessarily be what you want to do, but you have to do it, then that courage will lead you to then be resilient and, to continue the journey. Because if not, I think if I hadn't had courage, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. Hi, I'm Jennifer Ong, and this is my story.